Hi, good evening. I'm Sandeep, and you are watching The Weekender at 5. In today's headlines, 28 new community cases, 65 in MIQ, and two further unfortunate deaths. There are 28 new community cases of COVID 19 and 65 in MIQ facilities today, as well as two further deaths, the Health Ministry has announced. In a statement, the ministry said a man in his 30s died at home on 5th of January and tested positive for COVID 19 after his death. A man in his 60s with the coronavirus also died at Middlemore Hospital on Sunday. The ministry said the large number of cases at the border was a reflection of the growing number of Omicron cases globally. Today's cases came from United Kingdom, South Africa, Portugal, Fiji, Qatar, Tanzania, India, Australia, Brazil, USA, France, and Singapore. In other major news, the Ministry of Health has reiterated that Pfizer and AstraZeneca are currently the only two MedSafe and cabinet approved vaccines available for use in New Zealand, including for the booster doses. The ministry was responding to an exclusive query from the Indian Weekender about the anxieties within a section of the community who were vaccinated overseas with a different drug and were apprehensive of the only Pfizer option available for booster doses. So, to read and enlighten more on this story, please do read Indian Weekender's website and follow our print issue that is coming next Friday. In today's interview section, we will discuss about the changes that is happening in the reality sector, the real estate sector. After a news that came in last November, the Reserve Bank of New Zealand was contemplating to tighten the availability of credit and lending ability for the home buyers, including both the first home buyers, the investors, and other people. So, how has this affected the real estate market, the housing market? Is it deterring some investors, or is it detrimental for the first home buyers? So, to understand more on this, today we have got esteemed guest VK Verma from Harcourt's Crystal Reality joining us. So, welcome to our digital studio, Verma ji. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you today?
I'm very good, sir. वर्मा जी, सबसे पहले आपको नए साल की हार्दिक शुभकामनाएं। और जैसे ही नया साल आता है, सबसे पहले जो लोगों में जानने की उत्सुकता होती है कि क्रिसमस और न्यू ईयर पीरियड में हाउसिंग मार्केट ने कैसा बिहेव किया, तो हम आपसे आपके एक्सपीरियंस जानना चाहेंगे इस बारे में।
Like the housing market in this Christmas period was slightly slower, quieter than November, December, like early December and November. And as you said in your news, the reason is all these changes which the Reserve Bank is trying to impose. And I think some banks have already started that. Yesterday, I was talking to someone, and she said that banks want her to cancel her farmer's card, which she has not used in last 2 years at all. Not a single purchase against farmer's card, but still banks want them to cancel it before they approve it. So this is some ridiculous thing, I think.
Definitely. Well, we have heard even more stranger stories that, probably they are counting on your daily coffees as well. So, we will come back and talk more about that, Vermaji. But before that, just going with your initial statement when you said that market was slightly slower. So, to uncomplicate it, is it a good news for first home buyers, or do you think, does it mean that when market is slower, then first home buyers have got more chances to get into the market, or you would think it otherwise?
No, I don't think first home buyers got more chances to get into the market if banks will be harder.
Right.
Because if banks are harder, then first home buyers, the most important thing is that the banks are approving loan up to 90 days. Their loan's validity is up to 90 days. So every 90 days, you have to go back to the bank and renew your loan, the pre-approval.
Right.
And if they say, okay, we will give you 10%, 90% funding, 90% mortgage on brand new houses, but brand new houses are not complete, are not ready to settle within 90 days.
Okay. Okay.
So they can't go and buy a brand new house.
Right.
So which means they have to settle for an old house only. But
Okay.
in old house, the bank will say, no, now the criteria has changed. You
Mhm.
need 20% deposit.
Hmm.
There's two contradictory things which are
Right.
working against the real estate at
The
the
real
moment.
estate.
So first
Okay.
home buyers can't make a decision whether to buy a brand new house or to buy a second hand house.
Right. Well, as we all know that uh, every like first home buyers are one component of the housing market, and investors are equally important component of the housing market, because they are the one,
Yeah.
which have got the major stake in the market. So trying to understand that, from what we have been hearing vaguely, that this move is addressed probably after the government's decision to slow down the market through tightening the credit, so that investors can be kept out of the market. So I would like to ask you, like, A, is that a right strategy to try to keep investors out of the market? And
No,
B,
yeah, yeah,
like, is that strategy working at all?
no, if you check the last year's 2021 sales,
Hmm.
when they changed the criteria of the rental and you pay tax on rental income, after
Hmm.
3 years you will be paying tax on rental income. You can't claim your mortgage payments, interest part of mortgage payments
Hmm.
as your clawback.
Hmm.
So the investors were almost out, the mom and dad investors.
Yes.
The investors, developers have pushed the market up in last 1 year.
Hmm.
So, but this one, developers are only maybe 30% developers are using banks' money,
Okay.
70% are using the second tier money. So it's not going to affect the developers.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you say second tier money, what does it mean? Like, are they bringing money from
The,
overseas, or it is their
no, the
personal?
private sectors
Right.
lending, they're
Okay.
using the private sector lending.
Lending. Well, that's a very good point. I think we have never heard that before. So thanks for bringing that point, that that the government's intended strategy is not working, because
Yeah.
developers, they are not dependent on banks' money, and they are bringing in the money. And probably what from what I have observed, I'm not sure if I'm right or not, that I'm seeing a very fast escalation of prices. In some of the new areas, like say Flatbush, in East and South Auckland, where we are seeing there is a good increase of price in the last 6 months, regardless of the point that prospective and potential buyers, they are not having access to easy lending availability. So how is that affecting, like?
Say if you're the developers, raw material is expensive, and you must have heard the building costs have gone up,
Mhm.
the freights have gone up, the material has gone up. If that raw material is expensive, then they will have to sell for a higher price. So they
Mhm.
don't have much control. If they try to still sell for like 2 years old prices, then they're not making any profit,
Right.
because their purchase of land is also high. As you know, the market has gone up, and especially for the potential development properties, the market has escalated by 50%. I
Mhm.
have seen some scenarios where on one street, one property is sold for, say, for example, 2 million.
Mhm.
After 3 months, the next door, exactly same size land, exactly same size potential, and sold for 2.5 million, which is 40, how much? 25% increase
Increase,
within three
definitely.
or 4 months.
Definitely,
Yeah,
definitely. And well, that's the supply side. That's on the supply side, what probably developers, they're asking for that money. But probably on the demand side, I would say that the prospective buyers and prospective potential buyers, are they able to generate that kind of money within, that kind of escalation in prices within 3 months? So that is a concern. That is a concern for a lot of
yeah.
potential buyers, particularly the first home buyers. So what do you think, like, is that the right thing, or will there be a correction to the whole housing market in near future?
Definitely, there is a correction in the view,
Okay.
but another thing is that correction will be very short, for a very short period.
Right.
Because once this 165,000 people will get their residency,
Hmm.
then they will put pressure on the market again,
Oh, right. Okay.
and they are going to buy. They will start buying after a couple of years, or maybe some of them are here for
Mhm.
last 10 years, and they have got enough deposit, and they have husband wife income altogether 150,000, so
Mhm.
they easily qualify for a good amount of loan.
Right.
So once they get their residency and they are in the buying mode,
Hmm.
they join the buying force, then the market will again rise.
Will again
And
rise. Well,
its correction is going to be only for say 3 or 6 months,
okay.
probably. Yeah.
Okay. Well, no, that's a very good insight. Thank you very much for that. Now, a couple of more questions because I'm quite interested by your responses. The first thing is that if a correction is in the order, I don't know when, and probably I don't want you to even crystal gaze on that when. Uh, my question to you is that how and what kind of queries you are facing from your vendors, who are enlisting properties with you, and what kind of advice you are giving to the vendors, plus what kind of advice you are giving to your prospective and potential buyers.
Like to vendors, we always say that this is the best time to sell because we don't know about the future.
Mhm.
And to the buyers, I will always say it is the best time to buy. It's better to pay the mortgage rather than paying rent. Because when you pay rent, you are paying mortgage of someone else. I got 5 tenants,
Mhm.
so they are paying my mortgage
Right.
simply. So it's
Right.
better to pay your own mortgage rather than paying someone else's mortgage.
Right.
So always be quick to buy the first home,
Mhm.
but when you are buying the second home investment, then you can slow down and think, take a wise decision, wait for the market ups and downs, and act
Right.
accordingly. But
No, that's
first home buyer, definitely buy ASAP.
ASAP. That's quite good. That's quite good and very well said, I would say. Now, coming to another small segment of the market, I'm not sure it is a small or a big, since we don't have got enough numbers. Basically, once somebody has got into the market, in the lowest ladder of the property market, and then probably after say 6 months or maybe a couple of years, they want to upgrade, or
Yeah,
upsize themselves. And that's also we are seeing a lot of activity in that chunk of market. Lot of our Kiwi Indian migrants who got into their first home probably in 1 or 2 years ago, now
yeah.
they are coming back into the market to upsize themselves by selling. So do you think it is the right time for them to do indulge in those kind of adventurous activity, or they can probably benefit by waiting
This is the best time for them.
as
And
well?
yeah, I tell you, if you have bought a house 5 years ago, just take an example, 5 years ago, you
Mhm.
bought a house. What's your value if you go for registered valuation today for the same house? There, the valuer will say add 70%.
Mhm.
In 5 years, the market has gone up by
Mhm.
70%.
Mhm.
So your value of 1 million house, which you bought 5 years ago, is now 1.7 million.
Mhm.
So your equity has increased by 700,000.
Right.
So that equity you can use as a deposit for the new house if you are
So that
upsizing.
that will be an investment, isn't it? So you're talking about investment property
No,
or the
you
property?
upgrade. You keep the first house as investment.
Okay. 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 Yeah.
Say if you bought a three-bedroom house in Mount Roskill, 1950s house,
Mhm.
5 years ago, that was around 700,000.
Mhm.
Now they are around 1.2 million.
Mhm.
So that 500,000 extra is your equity for the next house, and you can keep this 1950s house as a rental.
As a rental property.
Yeah, and you can
Oh,
go and buy a brand new house where you
no.
can tell the bank this 500,000 plus whatever I've got deposit saved. That's
Mhm.
all my equity.
All right. Well, that's. I think yeah, that's
when the
very.
market when
Mhm.
the market is going down or gone down already, then
Mhm.
you can't do this exercise because then your existing house doesn't value that much. You
Right.
don't have equity, you have lost the equity.
Right. Okay. Well, again, that's a very valuable advice. I'm pretty sure that probably you will be receiving a lot of phone calls after this conversation
Okay,
because
let us see.
yeah, such a good advice is coming left, right, center from you. Now, one last piece of advice that I would request you is for our investors. So, how do you want, or what kind of advice you have got for our prospective investors within our community?
Like if you are mom and dad investors, like you want to just buy and keep it for rentals, then you have to keep it at least for 10 years. But if you buy a brand new house, you can keep it for 5 years and then flake it without paying any tax. But for old house, you have to pay tax if you sell it before 10 years. So if your intention is to keep it for long term, then definitely buy, because after 10 years, the value will be double. So you'll
Great.
still make huge money. There is no other investment in New Zealand. You can't,
Great.
I won't say that you go and invest in cryptocurrency or other things. It's a high risk game. Yeah, they have gone up by 9,000%, but it's a high risk game.
Definitely. No, but thank you very much, Varmaji. I really appreciate you sharing your
No
wisdom, your
worries. Yeah.
time. And I must say that I really like your optimism, like a true real estate professional who is always upbeat, regardless of the market, regardless of the, uh, what's in store in future. You are quite upbeat, and you have sold everyone that this is the right time to get into the property market. So thank you very
Thank you.
much. I
Thanks,
hope
Sandeep. Thank
I
you.
hope yes, our viewers will be benefited with your wisdom. Thank you
So
very much.
if someone wants to uh, contact me, you can give my numbers. Leena has got my numbers. Okay.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. My
Thank
team will
you.
look after that. So
Yeah.
thank you very much, Varmaji. This is Sandeep, along with our production team from Weekender at 5. Thank you.